Thank you so much. Parshat VaYerah, the prism. I'd like to delve into this week's Parsha, which talks about Avram Avinu, but also let's talk about politics for a second. The new mayor of the Big Apple, New York City, is the first Muslim, is Zohran Mamdani. So he is the first Muslim mayor of the Big Apple, the New York City, and so this has a lot of people concerned. Now, obviously has a lot of people not concerned. If you voted for Zohran Mamdani, I'm sure you're elated of the results. And if you disagree with Zohran Mamdani, it's probably having you wanting to look into real estate right now into Florida or to move to Israel, which wouldn't be necessarily a bad idea. But let's get into what is really happening on a spiritual level, because it all comes from a spiritual level. Forget about everything you see in the exterior. You probably see things in front of your eyes. You look at the news and every day, and you're probably like, this is the way it's supposed to be in a certain geopolitical concept. It's not that. Everything is built on a spiritual level, and from there, it manifests itself into something physical. So that's the way we roll as a Jewish person. This is the way you should be looking at the world, not through just the exterior, but what's really happening from the root of the thing and how's that happening. Now, I had published something in the Prism newsletter in Parshas Bereshis, which talked about this idea of what the Muslims, Yishmael, what they represent. And it's just Kabbalah 101. You ask your local Kabbalah rabbi, even Madonna probably knows this concept. It's not so foreign. It's something that you should know. It's just the basics of what is really happening in this world. And the question of what's on people's mind, probably today and certainly in the past. Remember, there were these protests, certainly in Columbia University, where you had, on one hand, you had Muslims who were saying river to the sea, Palestine should be free, which really means the Jewish people needs to get out of there and they should be killed or should be left the land of Israel. And together, marching with them, you had the Queers for Palestine, two people that if, let's say you had a person who was gay in Gaza or in any of these countries, they were put to death. It's not something that's from the biblical times. It's today that if you're gay, you are going from the top floor down to the bottom floor without an elevator. You are going on the express route, and that's way to your death. And that's just the way they roll. There's nothing, like, for them, this is just the way it is. So, question for many people, we're seeing these two people marching together, united against Israel. And you had, on one hand, again, the Muslim people, and the other hand, you together, marching together were the queer people. And it's like, what in the world is happening? So on a spiritual level, it's very easy to understand, and it's based a lot on this week's Parsha. So here's a little backstory. We have Avram Avinu. Avram Avinu was married to Sarah. Now, they tried to have children for a long time. However, they weren't able to. So along within Avram's household, from Mitzrayim was given a gift from Paro to Avram Avinu when he left Mitzrayim was Paro's daughter at the time, and given as a servant in Avram's household, and her name was Hagar. So after a while, Sarah said, look, we're not having children together. Build up a household through Hagar, have a child, see what happens. And lo and behold, they had baby Yishmael. And Yishmael is the forefather for all the Muslim people, for Muhammad, and that's where it starts from. Yishmael. And they had that child together. Now, fast forward into this week's Parsha, after Avram Avinu had the Brit Milah, Sarah, the Malachim come and said, Sarah's going to have a baby. You're going to have a baby together. They had baby Yitzchak. And so Avram Avinu now has a baby, and that's Yitzchak. So let's look at some of the traits of these people where we're talking about both Avram, Hagar, and Sarah, and Yitzchak. What were some of their traits? So Avram was waiting in this week's Parsha outside in the heat, waiting for visitors, because Avram had this midah, had this trait of giving, of chesed. And you see, he just wanted to give. He wanted to let people know about Hashem, and he kept on doing that. Was his message. He had this tent that had 4 openings, and he was always giving. When these people came to him, these 3 travelers, he wanted to give them the best. He goes into the kitchen or wherever Sarah was, let's say the living room. Okay, forget, she wasn't in the kitchen. She was in her living room. And he said, "We have guests. Put the best up. We're getting the best flour." The Gemara and Talmud and Bava Metzia says that she heard that and was like, okay, like I'll give them flour, but like not the best. And so she had this idea of gvura, so which is like restrictiveness and din of judgment. And you definitely see this nowadays. Let's say, for example, a barbecue. The man says, woohoo, we're having the barbecue. We're inviting all my friends. And the wife is like, no way is Steve coming to this barbecue. Last time he got drunk. He landed up in the pool. He's not coming. And forget about all these hot dogs. Nobody ate the last time. And the man is like, no way. We're having all these things. We're going to get all these. hot dogs and everything and steaks, and the woman's like, no, the freezer is still full of the hot dog buns and you never took care of it. You said you were, like, this time I'm going to eat all the hot dogs myself. And the man is always like wanting to give. And that's Avram Avinu. Avram Avinu had that trait of chesed, and he wanted to give. And Sarah was like gvura, which is more of strength, this constraint, and saying, hold on a second, let's think about this, let's plan that out. And that, a lot of times you find that in a marriage. First of all, there's always exceptions, but a lot of times you'll find that in the marriage. The man is more like, we'll do it. And the woman's like, okay, let's think about it. And in so many different aspects of the man and the woman relationship, that's it. Chesed, man, the woman is more thoughtful and has constrictions and calculations. And that is the woman's nature. However, there is a concept of chesed, which is doing good, but a chesed, what's called in Kabbalah or Torah, Bible, chesed d'tumah. You see that even in the Bible. You have Parshat in VaYerah, which says that if a person uncovers the nakedness of his sister, that is chesed. And why? Why is that chesed? That's kindness? No, because there's two types of, let's say, if a person has sexual relations with his wife, there's two kinds of things you could take away, probably more, but let's just focus on two. One is, he is there to have the sexual relations with his wife in order to please her, and that is his intention. That is a good idea of chesed. Now, there's another aspect, is a person does a sexual act where it's only for himself, not really necessarily concerned with the other. And that is like an idea of chesed. There's a concept of chesed d'tumah. It's like giving, or like, but this idea of it's really for yourself. And so that is chesed d'tumah. Great. Avram Avinu had this trait of chesed, and Hagar also was chesed. She came from Mitzrayim. Mitzrayim is a place of this sexual desires and doing these things where they wanted to do it without God involved, and that was chesed d'tumah. So when they had a child before Avram Avinu even had a brit milah, came from that was Yishmael. Yishmael represents this idea of chesed d'tumah, life, doing what you want to do for your own thing without any gvulim, without any borders, without any constrictions. I will be wherever I want to do what I want to do now. And that is chesed d'tumah. And that is what Yishmael, that is the Muslim people. When you have people who say love is love and there's no rules, it's just totally arbitrary. Love is love. So I love a man, I love a woman, I love a dog. It's just love is love. Whatever one person comes and says, I love my dog, and so I want, or a donkey. That's the relationship I want to have. So love is love. So like, who am I to say to you that that's not love? However, that we have a guidebook, we have the Bible, we have the Torah, and says that no, these are the laws, and this is how you live your life, and so you got to pull back on certain things, and we follow God's ways. If you do not subscribe to that, you start making up your own thing and say, okay, this is it. But in reality, the point of it all is you do what you want to do, and I don't want to have any restrictions on me. So this is now understood. When you have people of the Muslim nation, and they are saying from the river to the sea, we do whatever we want, there's no restrictions. You saw that in October 7th. They just had sex with anything that moved over there. It wasn't just even attack, it was rape, and it was killing. They killed, but it was also rape and all these different things that they performed. That's just like a small part, because it's just like a whole philosophy. It's their inner being of who they are. And if you go to them, they're not going to be able to say, oh yeah, that's who I am. Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, you listen to this thing on Prism by Menachem Weiner? Yeah. No, they totally on. They don't even know, because it's going on a spiritual level, and it's not something that's tangible that they could say that this is true. It's just something that is running the show. And this is a reality. This is basics. And that idea of people who do what they want to do, also, it's this idea of chesed d'tumah. They just want to do for themselves. And on the surface, they could say, no, like, this is my lifestyle and I'm setting things up this way. But it's all based on this lower spiritual level of chesed d'tumah, which is a thing. And therefore, you could have on one side the Muslims for Palestine, who are saying that the Jewish people should die, together with the queers for Palestine, and they're together. They don't understand it. You're going to ask them about it. There's this contradiction. They might come up, but everything is on a spiritual level, and it manifests itself on this physical thing. So therefore, you could have a new mayor of New York City who has this philosophy. There's this idea of money. It's not everybody. There's no concept. It's a free for all, not just like free money for all. It's when you say a free for all, it's just like a total, what we say in Jewish life, like hefker. It's it's hefker. I don't know. Maybe Google translate that, but it's just a free for all. And maybe Hefker is free fall. But that's it. That's the existence. So when you're looking at the news and you're seeing what's happening, this is what this represents. This is why it's all together. It's not strange. Again, go to your Kabbalah rabbi, your local Orthodox rabbi, go to Madonna. You ask that Guy Ritchie. I'm sure he knows something. Ask them. Just ask them straight out. Ask people who know this concept. This is the reality of why this exists. It's something that you should welcome, because then it makes sense. Otherwise, you're living in a world and an existence that just totally doesn't make sense. Like, what is going on? This is why it's happening. We are seeing amazing things happening, and understand that God is in control of this whole thing, and we do his will. We study this Torah, and we become better people to ourselves, to others. Have a great Shabbos. Comment below, subscribe. Thank you for listening.